Every atom on your body, every ounce of energy, every brain cell was telling you to scream, "Don't go, Jürgen!
Don't go.
Don't leave me!"
I was so close to just holding a stereo over my head. In your eyes.
As the birds told us, to everything there is a season, time to every purpose under heaven, time to be born and a time to die, time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, and paraphrasing, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. And we are going to do a little bit of each in this conversation, which is rooted in that unforgettable day 4 months ago when the Teutonic Care Bear himself, Jürgen Klopp, made the surprise announcement that he'd pack up his Nicorette stash, give out his last fist bumps and leave Liverpool at the end of this season. And I knew even in that moment there was only one bloke who could help us try and process, try and come to terms with the end of this truly colossal modern footballing period, with both empathy and insight. A man who was born during the great Bob Paisley years of Liverpool, survived 31 delightful games under Roy Hodgson, and may or may not still wear a full kit under his clothing when he goes to Anfield like he once did as an 8-year-old. Welcome back to the host of HBO's Last Week Tonight, a gent who collects Emmys the way Everton collects points deductions, as an eternal champion of public libraries and the greatest ever friend of the pod. It's the normal one himself. Oh, it's Mr. John Oliver.
I collect Emmys like points deductions, and that reasonable people could say that I don't deserve all of them, Rog. Isn't that right? Also, only you could start a show with a really apt Birds reference. Turn, 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 Rog. It's what Johan Cruyff had in his head when he played
Sweden.
Put his non-dominant foot behind him. Went, do you know what? I'm going to go full Birds in this situation. A time to live, is it not?
Neil Young's listening to that being like, but what about me, Johan Cruyff? I want to not make this about me, and I don't want to make this about the Birds. I just want to say up top, I am sincerely sorry for your loss, John Oliver.
Thanks.
How are you holding up, love?
I mean, I'm mourning a man who hasn't left yet, but who has his soul out the door. Yeah, it's very, very difficult. I'm trying to appreciate it. I think that's what ever since he said he was leaving, I've been trying to, just appreciate every game in which he's here, every pre-game press conference, every post-game press conference, every little video of him welcoming people to training centres. I was just watching him with that kid, Dara, from Ireland. Fantastic.
Dara.
Just fantastic. Just a genuinely good man to his bones. The pain I'm feeling kind of is a pretty good sign of the gratitude that I should have in my heart right now.
Well, let's unpack all of it. By the way, my friend John Green, he texted me the day the news went down. He woke up, I guess, an hour behind me in Central Time, and he'd seen our tweet. He texted me, he said, God, I read your tweet and I thought Jürgen Klopp was dead. Yeah. And then I found out the news and it was so much worse than that. And John, we are recording this in a week in which Jürgen Klopp's farewell tour will play its final gig at Anfield against Wolves. An exhibition game, essentially.
Yeah.
Liverpool mathematically eliminated from the title race. Champions League place secured. City and Arsenal have a pretense of a title race. I'm sorry, Anne Hathaway. It's going to end with Ruben Dias puking in Jack Grealish's Gucci bag one more time. But
Hathaway, you're going to forge a stronger connection to football through
the
this.
paint. Hathaway knows it.
You don't. This is not how life works, Hathaway. You have to understand that.
Hathaway knows being an Arsenal fan ain't no rom-com. She's been around the block.
We all want Arsenal to win now, Hathaway. It's not going to happen because you're running up against the soulless inevitability of a combine harvester.
God, make a movie about that, Anne. By the way, even though Liverpool season, I mean, this is it. It has been, you've lived it. Hathaway's lived it. You've lived it worse. All the emotional hues. You're going to end up just with a Cup o' Carabao. But you'll never forget it. Because of that Friday morning in late January when your man, Jürgen, shocked everyone, I think, in the moment, announcing he'd be leaving the club at the end of the season. He addressed the supporters in a video which was then the most traumatic 24 minutes on the internet until Baby Reindeer was released. He said he was, quote, running out of energy to do the job again and again and again. And in a very human admission, he says he didn't want to wait until he's too old to have a normal life. John, that news was an awful alarm clock for Liverpool supporters around the world. Can you take us back there? What was your reaction to the news? Where were you when you find out? How did you find out?
I was at home and then I started getting, as any Liverpool fan, a lot of texts that felt not just like, have you seen the news, more like welfare checks. Everything all right? Not really. No, not really. I mean, I'm an emotionally distant person, so it's going to take a while for this to work its way through my body, but I think I'm in crisis right now, if that's what you're referring to. Yeah. I wish he wouldn't leave. But I will say straight away, there was a feeling of immediately how lucky we've been to have him. I think that's partly been in my mind, in that the way in which this wasn't a shock is he does have a pattern, right? He has spoken ahead of this job, atypically for a football manager, about not wanting to outstay his welcome, but beyond that, thinking that he has a natural burnout rate at clubs. And actually, he'd extended that time at Liverpool, right? His natural yearly cycle had passed and he was still there. So I do think it was less shocking than it might otherwise have been if this hadn't been pretty consistent of his management history to date. But that didn't make it any less painful, because the thing about beautiful things is you want them to last forever, even though you know they must die.
Yeah, I mean, beauty is always... Why beauty? You're always so fragile. Say the Mainz fans, who he lifted that club, left it better off. A serial transformationalist. Dortmund, the same.
Yes, exactly.
And Liverpool Football Club. And you wrote something beautiful to me that day, John. You said this, you said, it's hitting me that I'm going to be telling my kids Klopp quotes the same way my dad told me quotes from the first great Liverpool manager of the modern period, Bill Shankly. And the weird thing is, this is your writing, Klopp's are better, they're deeper, and in his second language too.
Yeah, I think that is true, though. And I really was raised on those Shankly quotes. Football's not a matter of life and death, is more important than that. Kind of self-effacing hard Scott. My dad just filled my head with, oh, this was a great man. Look at pictures of him in front of the Kop. Look at what he meant to the city. Look at how he connected with Liverpool, right, as a city, not just as a club. All of that was true, but I do think Klopp went deeper. I think he was a better manager, a more interesting person, and an incredible communicator.
He lived in much more complicated, demanding times.
Yeah, and just think, in the relatively short amount of time that he's been Liverpool manager, what he's navigated that city through. Again, put aside the football, which is a crazy thing to say about a football manager, because they themselves generally aren't able to put the football aside because it consumes them. But he's seen Britain through a Brexit vote where he spoke out, did not keep silent. Seen through a pandemic, seen through Boris Johnson and Trump leadership successes, spoken out about all of those things, atypically for a football manager. And I do think, I totally understand how fans of other clubs might have found him irritating. I do think now he's gone, there is an opportunity to realise what was there for everybody. He elevated not just the Premier League in terms of football, but in terms of a presence, I do think he was a net positive for Britain, which is a crazy thing to say about the manager of a football team. But I think we're very lucky to have had him.
And it was. I mean, ultimately, I know as an Everton fan, I meant to despise him, loathe him, laugh at this minute. I don't at all. I've made no secret of that. I actually admire him greatly as a human being. And the reason, above all, it's actually not a footballing reason. I think he ultimately was a serial transformationalist as a leader, which is always fascinating. But he led with real empathy from the very beginning, right at the outset, where he was confused by a lot of his new reality. But even then, in that first interview, there was so much wisdom in what he had to say. There was an interview, we talked about him being a religious man, and he immediately said, yeah, when you die, God doesn't say to you before you go into heaven, show me your trophies. He came up with a beautiful phrase. He said, God says, have you tried everything to improve the place you've been in? And then he laughed, and I think he was talking about the team that constantly beat him. We'll get to that. He said, if you can't say yes, I did good, and I didn't transform everywhere, he goes, then you'll go to another place.
To a different door. You will go to. I think you'll go to a different door, which is an incredibly lyrical way to say, for a German accent, to say, you're going to hell.
These are, again, your words. You said so few people in football have the capacity to think on that level, yet alone express it in a way that sears itself into your mind.
I think that's true. And it was in place right from those early press conferences. That's the interesting thing, where he was talking differently. He was approaching not just that job, but his entire emotional presence in those press conferences was different. Right from the start, like, I'm not the special one. I'm a normal one. Right? The thing that I have right behind me. Really kind of saying very clearly, I don't see myself the way that you might see me, or certainly the way that others, mentioning no Jose Mourinho names, might. Right? So straight away, it seemed like there was a resetting there. I think it was in maybe one of, if not the very first press conference, that he said, it doesn't matter what people think about you when you turn up. It matters what they think about when you leave. Objectively true. Again, an atypical sentiment for a welcome to the football club job press conference. And the proof of the pudding is in how I'm feeling right now. I was kind of excited when he joined. I thought his history at Dortmund might mean that it was a good chance for him to turn the football club around. I was pretty excited about it on a football level. I'm personally devastated that he's leaving. And that has a little bit to do with football and a lot to do with everything else.
Delighted when he joined, devastated when he's leaving, and ultimately we should revel in everything that happened in between those two moments.
Yes.
And I think it's important, yes, there were the trophies, the almost annual updates to the Champions Wall, the training ground, the pride, the belief he brought back to the club, to the entire city of Liverpool, to be honest. But we do have to remind viewers of how far things had fallen off before his arrival. Yeah. There's a line in a Philip Larkin poem. He writes about forgotten boredom. That is what Liverpool were back before he arrived. They were forgotten boredom. I remember when you used to come on our show under Roy Hodgson, we talked about this a lot, and you said your dreams for Liverpool have been reduced to, on a weekly basis, just begging for 5 nice passes to be strung together. Yeah. That's how far the bar had fallen. There was former manager and Gucci belt and empty envelope enthusiast Brendan Rodgers. He was sacked just 8 games into the 2015-16 season. Liverpool were adrift. I think they were in 10th in the league. And then in came Jürgen Klopp, all smiles, with what I presume to be his original teeth back then. He held up the Liverpool shirt. He gave that press conference that remains, I mean, we've already hit a number of the quotes, more quotable than any Mike Myers film, promising to this club, promising to the city that he could turn doubters to believers. But there were a lot of turbulent moments in the first micro season. Klopp was widely derided for making the players go and join hands, salute the cop after it needed a stoppage time Divock Origi header to steal a 2-2 draw against a flailing West Brom. That was him doing the German thing, building the connection between players and fans with himself as the third element in that trinity, the conductor. When was it that you started to really believe?
So that was interesting, right? Because I don't think that made sense to most people, what he was doing there. And I think only in retrospect, I think, is it easy to understand that what it seems to me like what he's doing was kind of slightly redefining for his players, certainly, if not even for everyone else, what constituted success for him, right? Which wasn't necessarily going, you and I have always loved that Xavi quote, the result is imposter in football. And it really felt like, no, I think you're getting too hung up on who won this game and not focusing enough on what happened during it, right? And that seemed to be a way for him to forge a slightly different mindset in terms of that team and move them towards, we're going to play a certain way, and then what comes of that will be partially in our control, partially out of our control, but we are not going to move from a central idea of how we want football to be played. It's impossible not to mention the trophies that he won. Trophies that he won are fantastic. I appreciate all of them, but it really isn't like the abiding memory for me of his time there, because trophies are essentially ephemeral, right? You only own them temporarily, right? Then you hand them off to someone else who will take them from you. What he was about was moments, right? Moments can't be taken away from you. You keep those forever. Like, you don't keep the FA Cup forever. You don't keep the league forever, even if you're Man City. It goes. Moments are tattoos on your soul, right? They're there forever. And so as he started accruing those moments where you think, I will never forget this, that absolutely transcends winning a trophy. And to an extent, winning a trophy is really just another one of those moments. So tiny moments during games are the abiding memories. They're not always attached actually to winning in a final. Even the famous Champions League victory, probably the memory for that is Anfield against Messi and Barcelona, right? That's not the final. It's going to be remembered that way because people remember Trent taking a corner and them just running themselves into the ground without Mo or multiple first-team players on the field. They did something that was fundamentally impossible. Similarly, Lallana scored, ran, jumped up into Jürgen Klopp's arms, knocked his glasses off in joy. I mean, what a fantastic, messy celebration that was. So many celebrations now are planned. You can't plan.
When he pulled a hamstring.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Oh my God. That's the thing. You can have as many medals around your neck. Happiness running through your body so intensely that you have to grab the back of your leg. I mean,
you don't get to choose how you die, and obviously everybody wants to die in their sleep. You don't get to have to choose how you pull a hamstring, but to celebrate a goal with such just every ounce of your being that you pull a hand. I mean, this was it. I've got to be candid. No one's going to hear this, so I can talk truthfully to you, John Oliver. I mean, I put a list of the Liverpool incredible moments. I agree with you. Ultimately, football is about memories and about that feeling of profound cross-generational connectivity. And there's so bloody many that you had. The 7-0 dismantling of Manchester United. Frankly, quite hurtful, devastating, traumatic. But God, that 96-minute double-doink winner against Everton. Side-headed in by Divock Origi, who honestly rivals John C. Reilly as one of the greatest ever character actors.
Side of the head better than the front of the head in that situation.
He could have used the front of his head. He didn't. He wanted to give us generational trauma.
That's like, this is a football move. This is, you're going to be thinking about that for a while.
How can I deepen your pain in this moment of agony? Give pain to your unborn yet children. This is how I'm going to do it. Trent Alexander-Arnold, as you mentioned, at the corner taken quickly, and that 4-0 comeback over Barcelona sent Liverpool into the Champions League final. 6 Champions League win. Klopp channeling both salt and pepper, saying, let's talk about 6, baby.
Running on to hug Alisson. I don't even... See, here's the thing. I don't even remember what game that was.
It was against Everton, John. It was against Everton.
Was it?
Yes. You don't. That's so funny. You don't remember. I will never effing forget. And yet I'm still here to laud the bastard.
It was Evan. I'm sorry, Rog. And
I don't remember who died. It was my dad, John. It was my dad. But I mean, it is. I will say what you're saying humanly is so bloody important. I'm going to go there with you. I mean, I watched as an Everton fan. We conquered all of Europe. We're never going to stop. From Paris on to Turkey, we've won the effing lot. Jamie Webster singing, thousands of Liverpool fans filling foreign cities, red flares, delirium. I remember tweeting once back in the days when I used to tweet, like, Liverpool fans have more fun, more joy in like genuinely minutes of their season than I think I have had in 2 decades as an Everton fan. It has been delirious for you, the journey.
Yeah, definitely. And the pain is, it's this version of it, right? The intense version of it, the best version of it is over. That is why I think I'm going to be telling my kids stories about Klopp like my dad told me about Shankly. And that was my entire childhood. I think it's going to be them. Oh, you don't understand. Then he said this. Then he said this. Then he said this. Then he did this. Then this game happened. He was such an amazing man. And they're going to hear about it secondhand to an extent, because they don't really understand what they and I are watching right now. So I appreciate more of the fact that it is over. I will say, I do think his impact on the club and the city, but on Liverpool as a club, is Shankly-esque in its significance, in the way that, best case scenario for me, that the long tail of Bill Shankly was generational, right? Not just through the boot room, Paisley, Joe Fagan, but that his presence there was writ large. The spectre of Shankly lived there for a long time. I think, and I certainly hope, that Klopp's spectre is going to be there for a long, long, long time. Liverpool will be a better football club for it. Don't move on. I guess that's what I'm saying. Liverpool should, you always want to move on. Look, new managers should get their chance, yada, yada, yada. But that will just be for the team. They should not move on from what Klopp taught us and made us feel.
This is amazing, by the way. Klopp, in terms of your child skins his knee, you're going to be like saying, oh, son, Jürgen Klopp would say in these... Jürgen Klopp is to you what David Moyes and Sam Allardyce was for my family. which is why your children are going to thrive and soar. And mine,
let's not forget Ancelotti was briefly there.
Did that happen though, John? Did it really?
It was Mom's very handsome boyfriend, and you can't...
Did it really happen? And then he went out to get a pint of milk.
Wasn't there a guy called Giovanni here for 6 weeks for a while? He was nice. He smelled
the ice cream man. He was so...
Was he here?
Just get chocolate chip ice cream for dinner.
He told me what a lasagna was.
John, did it happen? Did we dream it? I mean, again, this is not about me. I do need to stop for 1 second, though, because you're right. This man's legacy, Shankly's legacy, I mean, Shankly was in the air, hanging over Liverpool when I grew up.
Really was in the air.
I mean, in the same way, Jürgen, I do believe, genuinely will be a spectre that will float above this city for a long, long time. There is an incredible thing that's really... The fact that he was German.
Yeah.
Undiscussed, but so deeply profound.
Yeah, it is odd, isn't it? And it might be hard for an American audience to understand that still carries some weight to it. Not just historically in terms of history, but also in terms of sport. There was such revulsion for the German national team. It was very hard to wish well, having moved through World Cups in the 90s and early 2000s, to wish a German well. And that's just one of the many other things he's kind of turned around.
I mean, he's like the craft work of football. He made us love. He made us admire. He made us laugh.
I think one of the things I love about him as well is that he was quite bad at football. I think that makes him a better human being. I think knowing his limitations, knowing how his mind works, brilliant football mind, knowing that his mind was trapped in the body of someone that was quite good at football but not that great. Yeah. That must have been so frustrating for him, and I really identified.
Yeah, like Frank Lampard, there's videos of him on the sideline of Everton, like a ball 50 yards floating towards him and just casually bringing it down with the outside of his foot on the manager's area. You didn't get a lot of Klopp videos of him like just bringing the ball down casually.
I love those old pictures of his days. It feels like when you look for him as a defender, almost none of them look great. His body just is not in a great shape. The ball's meeting him at a wrong point. And you know how they say about great footballers, they could do things you couldn't even think of. You get the sense that he could think of those things, it's just his body couldn't do them. And that is a level of innate constant frustration that made me feel like I have a lifelong connection to him.
God bless. You know what? You made me realise Michael Keane is going to be one of Bayern Munich's greatest ever managers in about 15 years' time. But we're going to delve into this 9th and final campaign. Really a strange, surreal last dance that we've all lived collectively. Liverpool, remember, had one loss before Klopp's big announcement, and that was on a chaotic day at Spurs when Liverpool ended up with 9 players and the VAR officials congratulated themselves. Well done, lads. Good process. As they wrongly disallowed Luis Diaz's goal. Players initially appeared galvanised. The week after Klopp's announcement, they assembled themselves into essentially a Merseyside megazord that tried to take on all challengers. And at its best, it was beautiful to witness. Liverpool had an injury list that looked like their strongest starting 11 at times. Mo, Darwin Núñez, Diego Jota, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Alisson, all sideline. But it was just like constant replacements. The young centre-back, Jarrell Quansah, scrappy right-back, Connor Bradley, a revelation, backup goalkeeper, Queeveen Kelleher. But eventually, all of that adrenaline, like adrenaline does, it just wore off. For everybody. They beat Chelsea in the Carabao Cup. The team then surrendered their chances at the FA Cup in a crazy game against Manchester United. Europa League, they were humbled by Atalanta. The league title itself, which we can make believe was lost at Goodison Park and not against Crystal Palace. But on Jürgen Klopp's final European night, after being knocked out of the Europa League by Italian side Atalanta, there were no fist bumps. There was no post-match charm. Just a very, very tired man. By the way, I'm sure if I'd offered you your Carabao Cupage and 3rd place before this transitional season began, you would have bitten my arm off.
Definitely.
And I don't know if you ever believed the quadruple was real, but what did we witness? Was it an adrenaline-filled surge burning off, just leaving exhausted, spent morass of humanity with nothing more to give?
I think the thing that was confusing about it was, I think going into the season, like you say, absolutely written off as fully transitional season. You have just completely reworked the midfield in a way that you're really kind of not supposed to do it that way all in one go. And if you do it that way, it is definitely not supposed to work. So, going in, honestly, the start of this season felt like, no, if he's going to go, now is kind of the right time. It feels like it's broken. This beautiful thing has broken down. What got confusing was that it all worked better and faster than anyone thought was likely to be possible. So all of a sudden, you have the emerging of this new team, bunch of young players. Oh, isn't this so exciting? At that point, it does get surprising. Oh, you want to leave now? Really, you've just started something again. You're not leaving at the end of something was 6 months ago. Actually, you've started a new thing. You don't want to see how this goes? That was wrenching a little bit. You don't want to see little Harvey run around a bit more? Look at these. You got Connor Bradley in your back pocket. Little Connor Bradley in the back pocket.
I think Connor Bradley's son came on in the Carabao Cup win.
Yeah, that was the thing that was a little bit surprising.
You made yourself dream again, didn't you? That wasn't that surprising. That, by the way, I'm listening to that. I'm like, is it that time? You let yourself, you're like, this is going really well. Maybe we're back in love. Maybe.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. And then he says he's going to go. At what point you think all you want for him is a fairy tale end, right? Then it's a little bit too plausible for a little bit too long for it not to be something that you want for him, right? That's what you want for him. And I think after that United game, it definitely seemed like, when you are just surviving on adrenaline, once that adrenaline dips, it actually drops fast. And they just looked spent.
Which is so agonising because you want something. You wanted it for him. You could tell how pissed off he was. The FA Cup final comes after the league. Could have been his great farewell. That ripped from his hands. The European final. No, you won't have that farewell. There's this concept in Taoism. It's called Wu Wei. Essentially says you can achieve more sometimes by trying less, by letting things happen instead of forcing them. And I'm fascinated if you can describe your emotions as you watched really the gas just run out completely, every trophy slip away. Hard reality. Essentially, this is what we're all thinking, that the Klopp Follow documentary that some production company reportedly paid Liverpool $10 million for is going to end up probably being sadder than The Notebook.
Yeah, although I thought it could happen, but I didn't think it would. So that probably emotionally insulated me a little bit from the disappointment. It still hurts because I wanted it for him. And I think what I've ended up doing is kind of reverse engineering through my own logic that the trophies aren't really it, right? They're what you aim for, but they're not the things that you fundamentally cherish. It's not to get so vapid as to say it's all the things we learned along the way, but it is a little bit, and that guy, I would like to see him go out on a quadruple, and that would seem like a fitting end to a truly golden era of his time in charge. The thing that I've always found interesting about him is that you get something out of watching him process pain as well as joy, right? So I've found myself in a way that I never, ever would with Liverpool manager or really any managers. Your own team, you don't really want to watch post-game interviews of your own team when they lose. You want to watch post-game interviews of Erik ten Hag because Schadenfreude, someone's pain can be your pleasure. But why on earth would you watch that of your own? But I've always found it really illustrative to watch him articulate disappointment.
Yeah, not how he explained the game in losses, but you loved how he articulated human pain.
Yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I kind of like seeing his post-game interviews after a win, just because it feels like surfing the final bit of the endorphin wave. But I really, really enjoyed watching him talk about loss because it felt like, I can have learned something as a human being from this.
There's a line in your comedy special, which I just saw, where you say there's one thing that joins us all in the room. I'm paraphrasing. This is your line, not mine. But you say, we are all joined by being failures. Is that the word? By experiencing failure in all of our lives.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that line. I love it, love it, love it. Maybe Jürgen Klopp's ultimate greatest lesson is we all do fail.
It's Beckettian though, isn't it? It's Beckettian, that fail again, fail again, fail again.
Fail beautifully.
Yeah, exactly. Fail more beautifully. And that's, I think, what he was trying to do fail more beautifully.
That is ultimately, that's on the stat sheet, fail more beautifully. By the way, the word dark moments, we do need to quickly recognise one. The second half against West Ham, I did think about you, the out-of-form Mo Salah, been on the bench, began publicly arguing with Klopp on the sideline. You got a chaos. Darwin Núñez actually playing the role of peacemaker.
That's almost the most chilling part of that interaction, because it's heartbreaking. Absolutely.
It was right. I mean, that was like mum and dad, Teutonic mum and Egyptian king dad fighting.
Especially because it felt like at that point, we're getting into how do we end this as well as possible, because it's not going to end with a fairy tale. And what you don't want it is to end like a German fairy tale, because those things get real dark.
He's in the cage. We are fattening him up.
That's Mo and Jürgen going at each other felt Germanic. I feel like one of those line drawing etches that oh my God, what's this? And then the eagle swoops down and takes the little bunny rabbit, because life is pain and we must understand and embrace this. The eagle ate, the bunny died. Good night, children, everywhere.
We are all going to die. God.
Nothing's the end of history, children.
Mo, get in the cage. We will fatten you up, and then the evil old woman will eat you. God, we've got to acknowledge the joy, though, in this moment. I mean, you ended your 30-year wait for the league title. You added a 6th Champions League trophy to the cabinet. Perhaps more importantly, you had the best porcelain veneers to player ratio I think the Premier League will ever see. But you also had to do it while competing against Manchester City.
Yeah.
Always that frictionless winning machine, just crushing all comers. A bit like that hydraulic press in the Apple iPad commercial. They're also a team that are facing, we need to acknowledge this, 115 charges for alleged financial irregularities. Liverpool finished 1 point behind City twice in 4 seasons. Their second place 97-point total in 2019, most by a team that didn't become champions. That John Stones clearance off the line by 11 millimetres, the difference. Do you ever consider what Klopp's legacy could have been if not for City, Wolf of Wall Street in a way ahead of them every season, or just accept it like any other home run hitter in that season trying to keep pace with Mark Maguire and Sammy Sosa?
Well, you don't have to accept it. You can definitely not like it, because it definitely feels slightly tainted. But I don't really think about it much. I guess partly because it is about moments, not those trophies, right? There's no better example of Beckett's fail more beautifully than lose by 1 point to Man City twice. That is how you fail beautifully. To get that close to what Man City were, regardless of even putting aside how they became that thing, was a huge achievement. Again, it's the memories, isn't it? John Stones' outstretched fucking leg is something you remember from that season, right? Is it a good memory? No, but I don't know if it's entirely a bad memory, because you realise how close you got to beating them. And I do think it is meaningful that he did eventually do it. And we've talked about it before. For me, I know it must have felt different for them. For me, that league title came at a point where I really needed it, and I will never forget it. And again, in terms of making memories, winning those games in empty stadiums at the end just to get over the line, boy, that meant something to me. It's incredible. For someone so articulate, and for someone to whom I've been drawn to watching them articulate pain and loss, watching him fail to articulate joy, when he started crying in that not the press conference, over Zoom, right, and just said, I'm sorry, gentlemen, I have to go, and his face flushes, I was absolutely in bits. Because, again, as a British person, there is nothing that gets me more than someone striving to suppress emotion and fractionally failing. That, to me, is the most perfect example of expressing emotion. Very, very nearly not doing it. So I think that is why that moment is just devastating. I get choked up every time I watch it, because for a guy so good at putting things into words, there was a moment where he was so happy and relieved he actually couldn't do it. That's amazing.
It was so unbelievably in context cathartic.
Yeah.
I mean, what now for this man? He's made it clear that he's not going to pull an Alex Ferguson. Said in 2001 he was going to retire from Manchester United, but then changed his mind. Kept managing for another 12 years. Also not going to be like Bill Shankly, the iconic Liverpool manager who retired in the summer of 1974, but immediately regretted it. showed up at pre-season training a few weeks later. Klopp said he won't manage another club in England. He didn't rule out a return to the touchline in the future. Neil Atkinson of the Anfield Rat wrote that he's the kind of person who would be the best at anything: a carer, an accountant, a CEO. John, what do you expect that this man will do next?
I don't know. I wish the absolute best for him. I'm glad he's not going to coach another team in England. Here's the selfish. I'll just get done with the selfish part first. That would really hurt. I don't think he could. In terms of the way that his character is set up, I didn't think that would be possible for him. So I think it's right that he kind of just says the obvious, which is, I'm never coaching another English team, right? I'm not going to do that. Of course, that makes sense. If he coaches somewhere else, I'll be rooting for him. Here's how crazy it is, to go back to the German thing. If he takes on the German national team, I will be rooting for the German national team to win the World Cup.
Which is
I can't believe I'm saying that.
It's a remarkable series of words strung together in one sentence by you, John.
I cannot believe I'm saying that. But I'd love him to win the World Cup with Germany. I think it would make him really happy. And I just want him to be happy.
By the way, when he said England, it felt so oddly precise. I thought he was actually seeding the idea he was going to be the next Wrexham manager. I can commute to the north of Wales. It makes sense. God, that'd be amazing. Klopp on the sideline when Wrexham get to the Premier League.
I don't know what he's going to do. Because it feels like he's got juice in the tank. I think it might be trying to find out what the next best fit is. I will say, I know everything's easy in retrospect, but Dortmund and Liverpool seemed like such obvious fits. I can't think of what that next fit would be for him in terms of a transformative appointment, which is what he's been twice. Yeah. And it feels like anything less than him being a transformative appointment somewhere feels like a bit of a waste.
He wants to take a team from the rubble to the penthouse.
Yeah, what's the point of him going to Madrid? I don't really see the point for him in that, or even Madrid. I don't see the point.
Jürgen, let me introduce you to a little shack called Everton.
Can't do it, Rog.
I actually believe, I would put money, if I was a betting person, that he's going to finish his last game. He'll deliver the 3 fist bumps to the cot one last time, and then he's just going to mount a Viking longship filled with all the objects that he needs in the afterlife, his 20 packs of Mobilite, his box of Crest white strips, and then just have it shoved out.
Just out the Albert Dock.
Yeah, he's going to have Harvey Elliott.
Out into the Mersey.
He's going to have Harvey Elliott just drag it to the mouth of the River Mersey, where Virgil van Dijk shall just draw back his golden crossbow that he brings to games and set. He's going to arc a single arrow out a flame, and it'll turn the boat into a burning pyre, and it'll be beautiful.
It would be, although I think what would happen in that is that Virgil pull it back. Darwin Núñez will accidentally knock his arm and fire it off into the Liver building. Oh, Darwin, chaos be thy name.
Into the Liver building, not the... Oh no, Darwin, not the Liver building,
Darwin, mate. No! The bird on top of the building's got in his beak now. Oh, how am I not mad at you, Darwin?
Darwin won't be around. He'll just do what every Scouser does in that second. He'll just leg it. Oh, no, it was me, Darwin.
Oh, I don't think there's a better end than Jürgen in a Viking boat. All set up, pulls it back. Darwin knocks it shoots off, and literally everyone says, leg it! And then,
leg it!
That's how we say goodbye.
Give it legs, lads! Oh, mate, I mean, by the way, this is a man who has been so fully embraced by the entire city of Liverpool. And he's given that depth of motion right back. This is why the Viking longboat makes sense to be kind of... His face is painted on no less than 5 different buildings by my count. There's a new one every time I go home. There's Jürgen's beer house near the waterfront. There have been 2 full-length books published about Scousers being in love with him. Outside Anfield, there's 2 statues of former great managers. One of Bill Shankly with his arms outstretched, like Jude Bellingham before there was Jude Bellingham, and one of Bob Paisley carrying Emlyn Hughes, the great captain, on his back like a Scouse version of that Footprints poem. How do you commemorate a man like Klopp?
There has to be a statue of Klopp. And I get that the reason you don't do it much is so that when you do it means something, that when it should mean something like now, you do it, right? Because what he has meant to people, it's not things that he's won in the time he was there. It's what he's got us through. Us being Liverpool fans, but also as a city, right? It's what he got people through. I think that's where the love comes from. It's not just what he won. It really isn't. That's just the shiniest garnish on what he's actually done for people. That is why you get statues. Not because you win things, but because you give people moments that are permanent. That's why there must be one, because he must be synonymous with Liverpool forever.
I've actually said this before, but I think there should be a large statue of Klopp giving a hug to Bobby Firmino, but with Bobby actually cut out of the sculpture so that fans from all around the world can just travel there and step into the embrace and just take photos of themselves getting a Klopp hug. Because I've had one and it is magnificent.
The reason of the obsession around these hugs, right, is not to do with winning trophies, which is, I don't want to put them to that. It's massively important, right? It really does transcend that with him. With most, if that was all it was, all you'd want is him holding trophies, right? Because that would be the most important thing. But that's not what those hugs are about. Those hugs are about what he got people through, what he meant to people. And trophies are a part of that, but honestly a relatively small part of it, I think.
I once asked him what the hugs were for, as if it was a management technique. Why do you do this? What's your thinking in that moment? Who are you giving them out to? He just looked at me and laughed, that big kind of like nicotine fueled, hacking cough laugh. And he goes, the hugs, they are for me. He was just saying, I think there's no strategy, there's no reason. Sometimes even I need a hug, which makes him even more joyful.
Because he's immensely present, though, right? In the ways that you don't get with football managers for good reason. I sympathise with all the other ones where they're like, I'm a shell of nerves and constant putting out of fires. You're not getting much of a human being here. I've just got team sheets, injury lists, and pressure. I've got a board meeting next week. You're not really seeing anyone here. That's why watching it like, as I was this morning with that kid Dara, and you don't get a lot of people in that position being as present as Jürgen was. You get them going through something that they might intellectually know is important for the team, for that person, but they're not present. He says to Dara, "This means as much to me as it means to you." He said, I'm nearly crying like you're crying now.
God,
you don't understand what this has meant to me. And he means it.
You're making him sound like a holy man. I mean, ultimately, Jürgen is going to start wandering around just in a loincloth, eating sultanas and just giving out wisdoms and hugs. And by the way, the world would be a much better place in terms of
definitely.
God, that is his future.
That's what he wants.
The Siddhartha era, Jürgen Klopp is just going to be magnificent. By the way, sculptors everywhere, I bet you listening to this are already like getting stressed and Jono about how to carve Jürgen's teeth. There hasn't been an official announcement yet, but we do know Klopp's replacement will be Arne Slot, the 45-year-old Dutch man who led Dutch club Feyenoord to a title in the Eredivisie last season. They won the Cup this year, the FA Cup of the Netherlands, the KNVB, and the Europa Conference League final, all while managing a team whose payroll is probably less than Taylor Swift's typewriter budget. Pep Guardiola's current contract at Man City runs through 2025. Liverpool seem to think that to beat the bald, you must become the bald. John, how you feeling about Arne Slot? I mean, Dutch balls have not exactly set the Premier League alight recently. Is he going to be the next Bob Paisley or the next David Moyes at United?
I mean, that does feel like the two ways that is it going to go, right?
No other middle ground. Can't do middle ground.
I am fighting the instinct of you're not my real dad, which is definitely going to be present. I mean, I wish him the best, and right now that it feels like a football decision, and this doesn't necessarily feel entirely like a football moment. So, will it work? I hope so. That'd be great. But the guy that's left wasn't just about winning games.
I think I'm listening to John Oliver essentially say, "I'm just not ready to love again."
I'm not ready. I'm not. You're not my real dad. Don't act like you are, okay?
Can I just tell you, Carlo Ancelotti wasn't my real dad, but those 5 months, I hear! We had an espresso machine pumping, the milk was foaming, it was unbelievable. But this, again, not about me. I need to know, when you get older, John, when you're sitting in the rocking chair in your WhatsApp group with Elvis Costello and Mike Myers, but you're sitting there with your grandkids, how would you describe a Klopp team to them? What you witnessed on this journey, what you felt?
I guess you'd start by trying to give them an emotional reference point. And heavy metal football, before he came, right? Before he came, that was what everyone was saying. Oh, he plays heavy metal football. What does that look like? And I guess you'd want to get across the fact that it was this controlled mayhem. They would just swarm on top of each other. That occasionally there were moments of just sublime passing. Probably shows some of the front three in its absolute prime, just carving through opponents. And then I think you'd try and say it was also really fun. And you'd show a compilation of Bobby Firmino no-look goals, which is just unbelievably irresponsible, totally reckless, and just the greatest. I'd show that celebration of him making fun of his eye. I think that was a really good callback. As comedians, you appreciate a good callback, and in that situation, I think that was often no-look tapping as well. God, it was fun. It was really fun. You're right, Rog. It was really fun.
That is the apogee of everything that you have talked about with us today, John. The no-look goal by Bobby Firmino is essentially saying, you're not going to remember this goal. This goal is innocuous. This goal is a tap-in. This goal is what I am paid to do. This is mundane. This is vanilla. This is missionary position. But no, watch this. I am aware in this moment, I'm going to gift you something mundane that you will talk about for the rest of your life. And doing the look away. Look at us.
That's right. Let's take a moment of banality and let's turn it into complete joy. And tell you what I'm trying to not do with my head, Rog, is this. Right.
It's amazing. If there's one thing you take from this conversation, listeners, live life like Bobby Firmino. Make the deeply ordinary extraordinary, which ultimately is what Jürgen Klopp has done for you. I mean, I've just had to watch Matt Damon outside of a restaurant in a rain, from the outside. But you've lived it, you've journeyed it, you've made those memories. So last question for you, John Oliver. Back in that first press conference in 2015, where Jürgen Klopp effortlessly charmed the entire room, entire city. Like, as you said, Jose Mourinho, if he'd chosen to use his powers for good. Klopp said, you mentioned this, that none of Liverpool's previous managers said that they, quote, wanted to be a legend when they arrived, apart from Brendan Rodgers. He didn't say that. That was just implied. What the press, the supporter said about that first day, this was his point as well. You've said it, less important than what they'll say when he leaves. You told me at the time you thought that was a brilliant thing to say, that utterly thrilled you. John, after almost 9 seasons that have followed, almost 9 years of your life, big chunk of your life, John Oliver, your collective lives, Liverpool fans who are listening to this, can you just take a minute, look into the camera, instead of thinking you're speaking to me, imagine you're speaking directly to Jürgen Klopp. What would you say?
Jürgen, guten Tag, wie geht's? I guess I would just say that I understand why the person you are would not be interested in being a legend for something as fundamentally trivial as football. But you are one. And it's partially to do with football, but it's bolstered by the fact it's actually to do with everything that was around it. And what you've done for Liverpool fans and for Liverpool as a city, and what you've got us through, which has been some tough times over the last, we've been through a bit. Those moments will be something we hold forever. And it's probably why wherever you go in the world, for as long as you have on it, you're going to be meeting very, very grateful Liverpool fans who might get a bit more emotional than you or they think is ideal when they meet you. I might be one of them, Jürgen. I'm fundamentally dead inside, but I don't know what I'd be like around you. I think it's probably best we don't meet. Danke schön.
By the way, what you've just said was incredible, seeing as that every atom on your body, every ounce of energy, every brain cell was telling you to scream, "Don't go, Jürgen! Don't leave me!
Don't go!" I'm so close to just holding a stereo over my head. In your eyes.
John Oliver, to you, to all Liverpool fans in that last game, savour every second, make great memories, and share them and talk about them. Good luck with your new dad.
He's not my dad. Not my dad, Rog. He's just someone who's going to live with us for a while. Some Dutch guy who's... That weird Dutch guy was here for a bit.
Some Dutch lad, some Dutch guy my mum likes. John, to you, big love. Godspeed.